Hey, Prudence. I'm very happy to see you here. Today we will be recording an episode about venture capital, venture studio, and everything that around there. Presence is a blockchain founder with 2 years of experience. She also worked in a venture studio 3 years, and now she transitioned into advising founders on storytelling, positioning, personal brand lead for Series I CEO, and now Content Venture Studio. Thank you for
Hi,
joining.
Mila. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this conversation. Everything you said is essentially my background. I started with my career of dropping out of university doing economics and just went straight into building blockchain startups. At the time, thinking it was like very straightforward, easy. Probably made every early founder mistake in the book. Worked at a few different incubators as well, like Entrepreneurs First. So I got to gain exposure to a lot of different founders from the early stage all the way to later stage. And then, yes, worked with different serial entrepreneurs to build out venture studios and got exposure to hundreds and thousands of entrepreneurs across different industries like blockchain, AI, biotech, space tech. And during this time, the reason why I transitioned from being a venture builder, which basically was every single day talking to founders on calls, understanding their problems and understanding where they are, where they want to go, what's missing, and how to plug in the gaps. Because the problem we have in the venture space is that, we all know 99% of startups fail, but 75% of companies that raise VC funding still end up failing. And from my experience of building startups, I understand that money is just one part of the equation. It's, lots of people can build companies without any money. And the main value when it comes to building something successful is definitely the team and the network and resources that you have in your toolbox, basically. So understanding this, I think being able to add value to founders, not from a capital point of view only, but also from a resource and a network point of view, is something that I really care about and really want to be a part of, which is why I love venture studios. And during this time, I had to be in the middle between marketers, developers, investors to help out founders in solving problems, basically. And the one thing that kind of caught my personal attention was just the storytelling element to it. So, listening to lots of founder pitches, you see a lot, you listen to a lot, and the ones that are most memorable to me and also the investors that I know are very much the story and the team and the why behind why founders are building what they do. Because investors see so many decks and so many pitches every single day. Your project likely isn't the first project that they've seen. It's often similar to other projects, but what's going to make you stand out, especially in the early stages? In later stage, obviously it's traction, how much revenue, numbers, all that kind of stuff. 100% matters a lot. But it's not enough. Your story, your why, are you are you someone that can stay in the game for longer? Because genuinely, I think when it comes to building companies, it's about how much pain you can tolerate, how much chaos you can manage. And surprisingly, the founders that have dealt with chaos from an early age, the ones that have gone through different challenges that are unrelated to business, are usually the ones that have the traits to become a good entrepreneur, because they often are able to manage the chaos that comes with building a startup. And having those stories in your toolbox when you're sharing who you are to an investor, I think it's how it makes you memorable. And funny enough, my first ever business before getting into this was actually helping students write their personal statements. And it's kind of like a full circle moment where I would meet a lot of students and they all got A stars. They all want to get into Oxbridge and all the best unis. And getting the best grades isn't enough. Your personal statement needs to shine, and reading the same books that other people read or going to the same internships other people go to, it's not enough. Working at Google, it doesn't make you a good founder. You have to have your own personal secret sauce. And having been a part of incubators and recently this program called VC Labs as well, which teaches you how to raise a fund, they all say the same stuff. It's all about what is your secret sauce? What makes you different? Who are you individually that makes you capable of building what you want to build? And I don't think this is emphasized enough in the startup space. I think it's very much on, building the product, the traction. And then I don't think storytelling is really highlighted as much as it should be.
Yeah,
So
but it's
that's
really
why,
important.
yeah.
Storytelling is super important. I agree with this. Actually, for me, it's really interesting to dive more into the venture world and
Mm.
to ask you what exactly is venture studio and what's the model? How does it work?
Yeah, definitely. And when I started Venture Studios, like it was around like, yeah, 3 years ago. It was still very new. Not many people were talking about it. And oh my gosh, I forgot the guy's name, but I'll find it and update you later. But there's a guy that's building definition of the asset class venture studio, because a lot of family offices that invest in funds, they are themselves new to the venture studio model, and so they're educating themselves. And the definition of a venture studio and the like back end side of things, the model is different because there's so many different ways of doing it. But essentially, it's like a startup factory where you internally have not just like capital, but you've got like the team and the network and the resources to build out companies yourselves. And the reason is because a lot of founders that build stuff, they are first time founders. They've never done it before. And so, it's kind of like giving pocket money to a kid and you expect the kid to like give you back, more money. Like they probably end up spending it on like a party or candy. Like a lot of founders, because they're doing it for the first time, end up wasting a lot of money to test things and try things and, fail. But when it comes to like venture studios, usually they have a team of experienced operators. Either they've been a part of like really strong startups that have scaled, or they've been an entrepreneur before, a successful one, and they're coming together to actually build up more successful startups. And therefore, when it comes to an investor who invests in funds, they are, you know, like where would they put their money? To a fund where it's operated by people that haven't been founders before, or to like a team that have experience, that like know the playbook well and have a strong network, and they're more like likely to get the return. So at the end of the day, startups, funds, like VC funds, need to give money back to their LPs, and LPs want to invest in funds that they know they're going to get their money back. Venture studios is just another type of model for LPs to put their money in that would get like a better return. When it comes to like VCs, I guess talking about the differences, venture capital fund, usually they're not operational. So they would just give money to a founder, take a percentage, and then just kind of allow the founders to do their thing. They might help with, introductions and things like that, but usually they kind of are very hands off. When it comes to a venture studio, they are very much, they want to be a part of the team. They want to be seen as like maybe fractional co-founders in a way where, okay, we'll provide you with the capital, but hey, we also have a very strong marketing department with this track record. We want to kind of come in and give you more media exposure, for example, like 20 VC. I mean, they're a VC, but they also offer a lot of like non what do you call it, non-capital value, if that's how they say it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, and then when it comes to an accelerator or an incubator, it's usually just for like maybe like I don't know how long, 6 weeks, 12 weeks, 3 months. It's a set period of time where they come in and like support you. Some take equity, some don't take equity, some you need to pay to join. But whereas eventually it's very much for the long game. We wanna join you from either the beginning all the way to an exit, or some of them also just build their own startups in-house as well, and then they hire like a CEO to operate the business. But they start with the idea, they validate the idea, they build the MVP, and then when it gets to a certain stage, they're like, okay, now we want to bring in a CEO to help us build it and scale it, and then we can do the process again, so that we have like a portfolio of startups that like kind of spin out from us. And then there's different models. For example, one of my friends runs a biotech studio, and she's all about commercializing IP. So this might be working with universities or research departments where they have a lot of research and tech, where it's just there, that no one's turning it into anything productive in this world, and they kind of take the tech and then see how to spin out useful companies off the back of it. So there's so many different models and ways of doing things, but I
Yeah.
think the common goal is efficiency and kind of not wasting the resources that we have on this earth, people, you know, tech and everything, and just try to make the world a better place, building something useful.
Yeah, that's cool. And you work with different industries, AI, Web3, climate, and all of these industries are the most trending right now. Do you have some specific lessons or some difference how to build and how to help to build startups in AI, Web3, and climate? What's the difference and what's the advices for them specifically?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, unfortunately, I'm not an expert in all of them, but I am lucky that I've gained exposure to many of them just through working with different experts who are in those spaces. And it's really interesting because I personally started off in blockchain, and it was very much kind of like, I guess compared to AI, now with AI you can build a lot quicker, but blockchain is also relatively quick compared to like biotech, where you need to go through like clinical trials and testing and everything. Like with biotech, sometimes it can take to 2 years to launch a startup. Whereas in AI, it's like, you're building last week and you're launching like, the week after, and you're getting money and revenue like within a month or something like that. So I think what I've learned is when it comes to time frame, definitely there's a massive difference when it comes to the industry. And therefore, as an investor, you kind of just need to like, depending on what your preference is, like, are you willing to wait longer and things like that? Or like, are you looking into like, AI because you want to exit quicker? I suppose timeline then affects like investment. And then when it comes to space as well, like, it's harder. Like monetizing space tech startups also takes way longer. So I think that's kind of like the key difference that I've learned is like, wow, actually, like, I mean, it's probably obvious to a lot of people, but for me, actually being in it as someone who likes to just like build things quick and launch and just test and get and not spend so much money and just generate revenue quick. I think when it came to like being involved with biotech and space, I was like, this is very, very interesting. It's very slow, but it makes a lot of
Yeah.
sense. Like you wouldn't want to launch something quick when it comes to biotech without going through all these tests, right? And the reason why I kind of like pivoted was because I suppose the biggest lesson that I learned is distribution right now is key.
Yeah.
And I made the mistake myself in my first, well, second-ish tech, no, actually first tech startup is building the tech first and just expecting people to come. That's why I love like, learning everything about sales and marketing and distribution, because I think nowadays the tech is relatively easy to build, and the successful founders that I've seen are the ones that have managed to build the distribution first. So either they have spent years building up their network, or they spent, time building up their community or their following. And then they decide to build something for their, for the distribution side of things, like distribution network. Those are
Mhm.
usually the ones that obviously like move so much quicker because they don't need to worry about that. Whereas the common problem and the challenge that founders came to me for was always about, hey, like presence, we need to get more clients. We don't have enough users. We've onboarded like, maybe several hundred users, but it's not enough. Like we need more. And we don't know, we're
Yeah.
spending a lot of money on marketing and we just don't know like how to make this quicker. Whereas, the founders that are like, hey, this is the first thing that we thought about first, like is the distribution. We've mapped it out and then we build the tech. They move so much faster. And I think with where we are at now in this space and in this, what do you call it? In the market right now, it's speed is so important and distribution is
Yeah.
key. And yeah, I think that's kind of like the biggest lesson I took away from everything that I've learned, and therefore is now my focus.
Yeah, cool. Do you have some advices how founders can position themselves better to get funded faster?
Yeah. I think honestly, it starts from like the very beginning. So where should I start, honestly? I think even from the outreach perspective to investors, like I get so many messages from founders saying, hey, presidents, noticed you invest, or noticed you know investors, we're raising this, like, let's have a call. And I'm like, I don't even know who you are, like, you're a stranger to me. And, the investors that I know have like tens of these every hour. Like they have so many messages. So it's like, you need to find a way to stand out from the very beginning of your outreach. There's a lot of different advice out there, like and every investor is different as well. Some investors always check LinkedIn, always reply to LinkedIn. Some investors only take in decks, before they take a call. Some investors don't care about decks. They hate decks. They're like, I just want to go on a call right away. Some investors only check email. Some investors only take calls through introductions and referrals. So I think it's taking that time to not just go like, hey, I want to raise. I'm just going to message everyone and just hope that, an investor replies. It's like you want to think about like, who is your dream investor? Because what I've learned as well is you need to be careful who you take your money from. A
Yeah.
good investor can, accelerate your startup loads. The wrong investor will kill your startup. having intention of what kind of investor you want on board, making a target list of the high quality investors in your network, and then maybe, I don't want to say like kind of message from the bottom of investors that you would like, but maybe it's not at the top of your list, to practice like what message makes sense and things like that. And also taking the time to understand, how does the investor want to be reached out to? It's kind of like with everyone, we all have our communication language. I love text. I'm not a massive fan of calls. I know people who only like calls, don't like text. I know people who love voice notes, hate voice notes. So it's like, okay, does this investor like, how do they want to receive the message? So taking that time to understand each investor is important, I think. And then that kind of then affects like, how you want to position yourself as well. Like maybe, this investor, like, is best mates with this person. You want to maybe talk to this person first and then position yourself and say, hey, I've been talking to your best friend, da, 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 like let's have a call. So kind of being a little bit more strategic just takes a little bit of time, but then also saves you a lot of time as well. I would say, like depending on your stage, are you early stage or you later stage? If you're later stage, then what matters is a lot like data traction. So you might want to start your angle of like, hey, we've been featured in Forbes, we've hit 12 million ARR in months, like we're now closing these partnerships and we're now looking to raise. So immediately, like, it's like you've been featured in this, you're credible, you've got the numbers, and by the way, I also noticed you invested in this startup before, and actually we are, similar stage or something. Like knowing that you've done your research, you've looked at what they've invested in, that your startup aligns with their thesis, and then you reach out. I think that's a very strong case for like a later stage, maybe Series A plus startup. Whereas a pre-seed startup, your early stage, you don't have any traction. I would always recommend to not raise until you have more traction. But like if you think that, now's the right time and you have a strong story, maybe you're a second time founder, which makes it a lot more easier. You've got, whatever makes you like, what is your secret sauce? For example, in VC labs, that's the thing that they teach you, is like, you want to always start with what is your secret sauce. So say, hey, an investor noticed that you invested in XYZ, or noticed XYZ. I'm building, XYZ. I keep saying XYZ. I'm building XYZ. This, before doing XYZ, like why should you build this? So kind of making really obvious immediately, like, why are you the right founder for this, and what have you done before if you haven't got any traction yet? What is your story that relates to what you're building? And it immediately hits the investor with like, number one, what I'm building is relevant to you. Number two, this is my secret sauce and this is why I'm going to win. Kind of like, at the end of the day, investors do want quality deal flow. Their job is to put money into companies. So, that's what they want to do. But the problem that they have is like, there's a lot of projects out there that just aren't good quality. And I think there are a lot of good projects out there, but the main thing is founders don't know how to position themselves to show that they're a good project. And with the attention span that everyone has nowadays, I think, we need to prioritize that a bit more and think, how is someone going to see me in this message? Or like, things like that I don't think founders really like pay attention to, just from looking at the messages that I get and the messages my partners get. It's very like automated, here's a deck, like give me money. Like it's kind of like, when you're on LinkedIn, I bet you get a lot of messages on like lead gen, like, hey, do you need more leads? Like, let's hop on a call. Like no one replies to those messages, right? So it's kind of like, a startup is the investor is the customer, and the startup is what you're selling. And it's the same as selling anything, on LinkedIn. And I don't know why it doesn't really click to founders. It's like, they think they can just send a message on LinkedIn and say, hey, we're looking for money. You put money in startups. Let's have a call. And like, think that's going to get. And then they say, oh, why is no one replying to my messages? And like, obviously.
Yeah. And in the end, so there is a statistic like 10%, 90 startups are not successful, 10% are successful, or even 95 and 5. And investors are always searching for this 10-5%. So when you present yourself, like show some proofs that you will survive and you will bring a lot of access to the investor. That's what you have to think about when you message them.
Yeah.
100% agree. Thank you so much for the advices. Let's play the game. I will give you a statement, and you give me opinion if you think it's normal, if it's norm or cringe.
Okay.
The first one, what do you think if founders are paying for fake Forbes features, like 30 under 30, or an article where the best in the best on this market, and it's the paid one. If is
Yeah.
it fine or no?
You know, my first reaction was just like super cringe. At the same time, it depends on like I know a lot of founders who are later stage where they have their own, you know, they hire PR agencies to help them. I think at the end of the day, it goes down to like the truth. Like if you're paying Forbes to talk about what you're building and you have like the genuine traction, everything, I don't think that's a bad thing because that does help with, you know, with when you're on a sales call with people, with customers, or when you're with an investor. But I think if you're like I get a lot of messages like, hey, you know, noticed like your profile. I think you're like top woman of the year. And like, but you need to pay £1,000 to prove it. And like, I'm not gonna pay £1,000 to myself as a top 100 woman in the year just because that to me is like very cringe. So yeah, I think it depends, but mostly cringe.
Yeah, probably depends on your goal. There is
Mm,
still not so many people knows that it's paid. Still a lot of people think that if you are in the top 10, you are cool. So
yeah.
maybe for the investor it doesn't important because they know that all these ratings listings are paid, but maybe
Mm.
for the user, if you place your Forbes logo on your website to prove that Forbes are writing about you, it can be trust point. So maybe, yeah, I also agree, it
Yeah,
depends.
like you said, like I think investors, the smart ones, like they have to know, like they just know, like this is the game that founders play. Is like, you know, you want to look good so that you attract more people, and from their perspective, it might be a different because like, oh, you know, you're on Forbes, therefore you might get more customers, therefore you're a better investment. To me, from a customer's point of view, like again, depends on the customer. Like some people, like you said, they don't know that it's paid, and therefore they're like, oh, this person's featured on Forbes, like, oh, I want to work with them, or like I want to buy from them. And then some people like me are like, okay, I want to do more fact checking first. So I think, you know, the smart customer is going to do their work, do their research and like look into things. And the investors, before any investor puts money in, they usually do due diligence. Like this was like quite a while back, but we worked with a founder for like 3 months. And then, you know, during the DD process, like we realized like the numbers that they were giving were fake. The revenue was fake, all that was fake. And you know, obviously, like we didn't do anything after that, but you know, people will find out. So it's like if you want to, you know, be safe, just say the truth. So
Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. AI startups without AI. Like it's in our roadmap. Like we
yeah.
are AI powered tool, but in our roadmap is to add AI later. What do you think about this?
This is a hard one. I don't know. I don't know if cringe is the like what's the other word? Cringe or
Or norm, normal?
norm? Oh, you know, I mean, I guess normal is the word because I know so many as well. Like they're like,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
know.
we've just launched. We're marketing ourselves as like AI first agency, and then I talked to him. I was like, oh, you know, no, she's doing like AI. Like tell me more. And like, so yeah, we're not doing AI right now, but like we are planning on it. We are looking into it. But so like, don't say you're AI first if you're like not already like doing stuff. But I think it's very, very, very normal now. Like if and I think it's like for me, it's kind of like in the blockchain space. Like it's kind of like a bubble where like there's a lot of companies out there that are using blockchain, but they don't advertise themselves as, oh, we're using blockchain to do X, Y, Z. Like maybe back in the day when it was like, you know, the Web3 hype, where it's like, yeah, we are, you know, blockchain first, da 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 da. But most people don't care. And I think we're like AI has been using companies, you know, for like a long, long time. You know, it's just now that I guess people that don't aren't technical, they're now, oh, AI this, AI that, but it's been used for a long time. So it's like just we all use AI now. Like let's not pretend we don't use AI and let's just like make it no, we don't need to use that word too many times. So
Yeah,
it's
it
not
feels like it feels like founders just want to use the trending word, and they think that it will help them to raise money
yeah.
or to attract more users.
I
Personally,
mean, at
me,
the
I
same
think
time,
it's
that's kind of
cringe if you
true
don't
as
use it.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah, I forgot who I saw this post just earlier on LinkedIn. Like, obviously we're in an AI bubble, and this investor was like, "Oh, founders, you should raise more money before the AI bubble bursts." And I'm like, "Yeah, I mean, I guess like it's kind of like there's a lot of founders that reject. Like I don't know. As I'm very like mixed on this. I I think what I've learned is because like it's so unpredictable. Building a business is so unpredictable. Like you never know what's going to happen, and one day you might get a term sheet with an investor like giving you 1 million. The next day the investor might change their mind and say that actually no, we're not going to do that anymore because XYZ. So like, should you take the money? I think likely yes, just in case. But then also, yeah, kind of make your own judgments on that. I don't want to put any opinion out there.
Norm or cringe, pitch decks with the 25 slides.
Depends on the stage.
Or it should be short.
Depends on the stage. I'd say like early stage, you don't really have too much going on probably. Like maybe you've got the team, you've got what you're building, maybe you've got like a demo to show and go to market and that kind of stuff, which is like, yeah, probably like, 10 slides less or so. But if you're maybe like series B, like, very later stage, then just the data alone is probably, several slides. So I think the later stage you are, the more slides there's going to be just because you've got more to show, more like you've got different decks for different reasons, maybe one for data, one for like what you're building, one for like customer reviews, all that kind of stuff. So norm-ish.
Okay. Agree, Norm.
Yeah.
For me too. Let's go to another block. What's the next for the startups and venture building? Do you see any trends? Okay, AI, three, yes, health, climate, but is there something that everyone is interested to build or to invest in the next 5 years?
That's a good question. I think that the venture studio model is going to be more the norm moving forwards. I know a few projects that I really can't say them at the moment. They're solving very big problems, very innovative. But one thing that I'm personally like interested in, I call it distribution first startups, or some other people call it like creator-led ventures, where maybe it's like a creator where they've spent most of their years building their audience and then they're building a startup. Like for example, Mr. Beast, he's built a lot of like build the audience first and then consumer products, but now he's launched about exactly what it is, like maybe a bank or something, like a tech platform as well.
I
And
heard.
yeah, I think creators are going into tech, and I think that's very smart. Like for me, you can leverage like four things, right? Like human capital, media, tech. And in the last 5 years, I've met a lot of people who have leveraged media but not really interested in tech, or like leveraged tech but not so much media. And I think that right now we're kind of seeing the merge, and like creators building out tech products and tech products looking for like creators to be on their cap table, like creator advisors and things like that. And for me, I think that just makes a lot of logical sense, is by combining these groups of people who are very like knowledgeable in tech and very knowledgeable in content together. And I think that's kind of, if I look at like Stephen, well, they've got strong personal brands in the media space, like Stephen Butler, Alex Hormozy and things like that. Like they're also looking into that world, and I think maybe more investors are going to also pay attention to that as well. I mean, they already are, but I just think it's going to be more and more important as tech becomes easier and easier to build, as everyone's trying to get everyone's attention now. And I think that is, with AI, it's just going to get harder to get people's attention.
Yeah, that's 100%.
Therefore, more value.
Another question: how are you building your own content venture studio, and how can you help the founders who will watch this video?
Awesome. So I would say I'm still quite early into it. But I think the first step is that we have, the teams that can provide like tech support, that can provide marketing support. So after doing ventures, I took a gap in, building more of like I guess, a marketing career and being a personal brand lead for different founders, including like kind of a 9 to 5 at Series A startup for a while. And then, this is where I met like one of my business partners, Nick, who has, over 17 years of videography experience and social media experience growing and scaling TikTok and Instagram. I'm more of a LinkedIn person. But I think together we've got, with other people as well, we've got quite a good media, social media team that we can just like, plug in and help founders with. And we've got like tech partners, we've got investment partners, we've got people, we've got like teams that can onboard like smart advisors for founders. So we've got kind of all the ingredients that's, besides money to help founders grow. And what we're looking for is essentially we're looking for founders that already have the distribution there. We're talking to a lot of creators at the moment, but I don't want to kind of label. I'm still finding the best way to like communicate what the studio is, because not everyone understands what distribution first founders mean. But essentially anyone that already has an audience, a community, a customer base where they're like, oh, like, I've got this network, I want to build something, but I don't really know like how to build it, I don't know how to get started, or I don't know what to build. Our team will come in, we'll kind of do a series of workshops with you, and we'll kind of discover what is the best product or IP to build for your audience. And then it kind of will map out like the team required and things like that. Because yeah, I think like all we need is like a strong like distribution channel to build cool stuff with. And then, we can do so many really, really amazing, cool things together. So that's kind of like where we're at the moment, is we've got everything in place, but we're looking for founders to co-build with. And that is, people that have the distribution. On the other hand, if you're a growth stage startup and you're like, oh, we want a fractional content team to come in and help scale the media side of things, that's also something that we do as well. So I think the cool thing about a venture studio is that it can be any kind of model you want it to be. We're not like a classic fund where like the only thing we can do is like deploy capital. Like we're very much like we can offer services as well to startups that don't want us to be like co-builders and just want us on a classic like, service-based model as well. And of course, any investors interested in what we do, let us know.
And I think it's really smart because we're living in the future. It's not just enough to give money for the startup. You need to invest with your resources. And right now we're living in economics of attention. So storytelling, positioning, any other resources that can help startup to grow are really important. And I'm really inspired on what are you building. And I thank you so much for joining this call and share your experience, your insights. Thank you so much. I will also mention links on your profiles on your website on the description. Thank you so much for
Thank you so much,
joining.
Mila, for having me.
Thank you.